Okay, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. This is a late stream. Well, I don't know. Actually, it's kind of a really bad time, isn't it? It's the end of the day in the
Yes.
Americas, or late evening, actually, in the Americas. In some parts, like if you're in Brazil, it's already
We are
10
in
o'clock.
beautiful Montreal.
Beautiful Montreal. We're East Coast at the moment, and we're at the amazing Confoo
Yes, Confoo
conference.
conference.
Wonderful conference. I, for one, am super happy to be back. I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting when I got here. I've never had a bad trip to Canada. Every time I've been here, I've had fun. But the country where I live has been,
Not so fun.
I was worried about the border. I was like, they're going to give me like the stink eye or something. But no, they were like, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. They're like, yeah, it's all good. They're super nice, super good. So thanks. I'm happy to be here. Happy to see you.
Oh, me too. And I am happy to see you too. Well, what was the last time we met? It was like on October, right? At the conference of one of your favorite doctors, who is not Doctor Who.
Dr. Subramanian.
Yes,
yeah.
it was Uncut conference.
That was it. Well, that was Dev2Next.
Dev2Next.
Is that the right one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great show.
And he's having like another
AI one,
yes,
right?
Arc of AI.
That's
is
going
to be a good show. Yes.
I think I'm going to that one too, as a speaker. I think
probably.
I don't. Either way, you should go.
Yeah. The bottom line, if you are Josh Long, then you need to check if like the speakers page of the conference to know if you are speaking on that conference or not.
No. Let's see, Dr. Subramanian. Either way,
you're there.
Despite his better instincts, he has allowed me. No, but whether I go or not, you should definitely go. That's going to be a good show. But yeah, it was probably that one. That was in Texas. No, where? In Colorado.
It's Austin, Texas. The Dev2Next, it was in Denver, Colorado. Yes.
Yeah, and that was a good one. And it was a good. It was a long time ago. That was like 5 months ago. The world is very different now.
Yes.
And for example, they have the Apple M4.
Apple M4
laptops and
yes. Does it make you happy or sad?
Makes me happy. I have one, but did you hear that whole ordeal I was going through?
No.
Did I tell you about it earlier? What a nightmare. Like I got this M4 and usually I rock the betas for Mac OS, because like if it's just Linux without a UI, that's going to be, I've had the best success at keeping a Linux machine. Like I've had Linux boxes with no user interface.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to run IntelliJ, I guess, on the live stage on a box.
No, what I'm saying is I did that for years. But what I'm saying is I need a UI. But when I'm saying in terms of my ability to run a computer and keep it alive as long as possible, like Solaris, then Linux, without a user interface.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right.
Got it.
But number 3 is definitely Mac OS. Right.
Yep.
I've had uptimes on that thing with like years. I've had a laptop that was never restarted, or whatever. I mean, it's possible with a Mac.
It died before it got restarted.
Yeah. I restarted. Yeah. This Mac though lasted 2 months. Right?
Ouch. That's not a lot.
And so and normally their betas are really good, but their new 15.4 beta for Sequoia, the beta, broke virtualization. It broke Docker.
Oh,
and it wasn't just like it didn't work, but everything is fine. It hard segfaulted the machine. Kernel panicked, right? So your machine
permanently?
Well, no, but I couldn't do my presentations on stage without Docker. I need how am I gonna, where's Postgres, where's Redis, where's RabbitMQ, where's all the stuff I demo, or Prometheus or whatever, Zipkin. And so I was like, okay, well, this is not good. I need Docker, so I'm gonna roll back. Well, you can't roll back, right? Macs don't give you the ability to do that. So, and remember, the M4 came out like November. I bought it in November, and I've had it for a couple months now. And I'm like, okay, how do I roll back? So I backed up my stuff, and I was like, okay, disk utility format, or go do the process. Just wipe it and start over. It'll reset to the latest GA version. That's fine. And it was still a pain in the butt because I did this update right before I was supposed to fly here to Canada, and
just right before a conference.
Well, because I'm always before a conference. If I don't like do it then when will I do it? And so I figured, okay, but beta, I was asking for trouble, and somewhere during the formatting, it corrupted the firmware. right? So it booted up like halfway between during the format. It just rebooted. I'm like, oh, what? And then it booted up, and there was an exclamation mark, kind of like the middle finger from Apple, just on the screen, a black screen with an exclamation mark and some text of a URL to go to
not even a QR code.
Not even a QR code, just a URL. Like, this is like the last resort.
Like 90s.
Yeah. It was, well, no, they didn't have URLs then, right? Like, not really. You wouldn't have been given a URL. It was just an exclamation mark with a URL, and the URL was how to do a device firmware update, which is DFU, which makes sense. The FU is implied, right? and so yeah, that's like an open part surgery, basically, or like a kidney transplant, where you connect one laptop to another and use it to hydrate the firmware, to rehydrate the firmware. And so I started to do that, and I'm like, it's chugging along, and then suddenly it disconnects. The machine that was healthy stopped connecting to the one that was broken. I tried it again, same thing. Okay, now I'm in a bad way. Like, this is the last. I don't know what you do after DFU. If that doesn't work, you're lost, So I was like, I took it to the Apple store, and then the geniuses couldn't fix it. So anyway, that laptop is now with Apple again. Gone back to meet the maker, and I was left with my creakingly old legacy, ancient, long since deprecated, long since irrelevant Apple M3 device, right? And this thing,
I am still having an Intel.
Is that an Intel Mac?
Yes, that's an Intel Mac.
Oh yeah, it's got the touch bar.
Yeah, you want to touch history?
Oh, it's so dusty. Scared it might fall apart. Anyway, so I'm rocking. I'm like, we're doing this live stream from Canada, and everything's going great, but I'm realizing I'm not logged into any of the things that we needed to make this live stream happen. But we're here now, and I'm Josh. You're Jonathan.
I'm Jonathan.
You've been on the show before, surely.
Yes.
But can you tell the people who you are?
Yeah.
What do you do? Like?
Yeah, I'm Jonathan. I am part of the Spring engineering team, and I am part of a team inside of the Spring engineering team called Spring Observability Team.
Right.
And me and my colleagues, Martin and Tommy, we are working on everything which is basically like observability related, like across the portfolio. That most of the times means like working on Micrometer.
Yes.
And Dan is saying hi.
Yeah, we just saw Dan a minute ago.
I just sat next to him.
Yeah. Hi, Dan. Good to see you, buddy. Okay, so look. So the better audio. Finally, somebody noticed. I've been doing the bare minimum.
We're recording like directly on the laptop.
Well, yeah, but we're using these microphones, right?
Right now, yes.
But normally I just record on the laptop
okay.
because I didn't want to. Because this is the first time they had these really small, like.
Yeah, this is really nice.
Really convenient. I can put it chuck it in a backpack and go. And over the years, I've tried everything. I've tried like the Yeti.
The Yeti mic.
The really, really production grade mic. I had some.
But you also need to carry those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I've done stuff from home where I had like a really production grade.
Not a problem, exactly.
And I had the really production grade audio at home, and people still complain. I'm like, well, it's no longer a technology problem. Like, I've used $1,000 hardware to solve this problem, and I'm still getting complaints. And so then I started to think, well, maybe they just don't like my voice, and maybe I should just go back to writing blogs. Like I've heard people have said you've got a face for radio, but I've never heard anybody say you don't even have a voice for radio. That's just you've got a voice for blogs. That's what they're telling me. Anyway, so somebody likes the audio. It's not bad.
Nice.
Yeah.
I am happy about that.
So you're on the engineering team. You work on one of the most important parts, which is the make it observable, right?
Yes. That's most of my job.
It's super. I mean, Netflix, right? Netflix talked about this stuff. How they live by the metrics, right? They live by.
Oh yeah, it's very, very important to them.
Yeah.
Actually,
always,
like,
but
basically
10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yes, because like Netflix was kind of big back at the days as well. But I guess like observability is like increasingly important to you if you are a big company who has like operating on scale.
Yeah.
Because like on huge scale, like since the probability of having an issue in an application is not zero, because of the law of the big numbers in big scale, you always has a production issue, like 100% of the time, basically.
It's not a good result.
Yes, and also it's not easy to like find out what is going wrong if your like stack is like huge.
Yeah, like if it's bad, you're right. The math's not in your favor, but if there is a silver lining here, which is if you're having a bad day, just remember, no matter what time it is and what day it is, somebody at Google is getting an alarm about some computer being on fire or broken or whatever, out of service. There's some computer. Maybe it's just one. Maybe it's 1,000. But there's, at any given time, something is broken. That's how big their scale is,
exactly.
Right? And it's just nice to feel like,
yes,
oh, I'm not the only one going through this struggle. Yes. You know, I've been thinking about you a lot recently. Because
in a good or a bad way?
In a great way, because you and the observability team allow people to see what they're doing. And I've been trying to lose weight, you know, and my doctor said, okay, I'm not, you know, like I so far, despite my best or worst dieting habits, I mean, despite that, I have staved off diabetes. But, you know, there's an easy way to fix that. I can like just keep eating like I was, and then I'll get it, you know. So my doctor's like, you know, try and lose some weight. And I said, well, how do I know what works? And he said, well, it's pretty simple. It's actually like it's just a number. If you keep track of the number, you know, there's two numbers. There's your weight, but there's also the glycemic index of the food you eat, right? And the impact of that on your body. And I can't feel a difference from when I eat like super high glycemic food versus, you know, I don't have that. There's nothing in my body says, oh, hey, that was bad, right? I don't have a sensitive response. So he said, okay, try this glucose monitor, continuous glucose monitor.
Oh, nice.
Blood sugar monitor. So I've got like a.
Oh, you have that.
Yeah, nice. Like I'm wearing one of those, which is pretty cool. I'm like technically I'm a cyborg now.
Is it like continuously recording it on Bluetooth? So on my phone. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you have like a Grafana dashboard.
Exactly. I could, right? I this is like I'm micrometering my own body here, you know? Like it's really cool. And you start to optimize your behavior based on the metric, you know? Like that number goes up and down, never out of range for the moment. But you know.
Yeah, these are called like adaptive systems.
Yeah, exactly.
you can adapt.
It's really empowering to be able to see that number and go, oh, what happens if I eat this cookie? Ding! Okay, don't eat that cookie, you know, because I don't feel it. There's no difference. It's just a cookie. It goes down and feels the same as anything else I do. But yeah, anyway, that micrometer gives me that same valuable feedback, that sense of like, okay, somebody hit the server and did that, and then the number went up, and I'm like, oh, okay, don't do that, or fix the number, you know, whatever. So okay, micrometer. We've talked about this before on the show. For people who don't know, we've got Spring Boot 2.0 back in 2017. Jonathan Schneider came to the Spring team. Well, before that, and he helped us build out this really nice library called Micrometer, which provides support for instrumenting APIs, Java code, to capture things like traces, metrics, timers, gauges.
So back then it was metrics,
right?
And
only
then
metrics, no traces. Yeah, that's true.
Then like a bunch of other things were added.
And we had separate from that, we had in Spring Cloud, we had the Spring Cloud Sleuth project,
exactly,
distributed tracing, and then we get to Micrometer 3, and it's like, okay, we have this observation thing, which you and Tommy worked on. Observation
and Marcin, yes,
and Marcin, yeah, of course, Marcin Grzeziak and Tommy Ludwig and Jonatan Ivanov. All of you worked on this amazing thing called the observation, which gives you one unified API by which to both create a context in which tracing is done and to emit and capture things like metrics. Super good.
Yes.
And then so Spring Boot 3 shipped with that new instrumentation abstraction in place.
But the whole Spring portfolio, like every single project back then who had like a major version upgrade, those as well who did not, because Reactor too, they had like instrumentation built in.
Right. Oh yeah, that's true. Well, now because tracing before it was asymmetric, right? Tracing was at the top layer on Spring Cloud, which builds on Boot, which builds on Spring Framework, which builds on Java, and then Framework builds on Micrometer. So you have like Spring Cloud and then Micrometer. Now they're both at the same level, both at the very bottom.
Yes.
So now Spring Data and Spring Integration, all of them can instrument their stuff, right? Yeah. Super good. So you're one of the people that leads that charge. And you're here at Confoo. You're not going to be talking about observability, are you?
Maybe I am going to talk about observability. I'm doing like 2 talks. One of them is titled Observability as it is never heard before. And if you are going to attend it tomorrow, then please close your ears because I will spoiler it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Don't go to. Don't. This is not for you. Close your eyes and ears. The audio sounds. See, Deshaun thinks we're.
Oh yeah, Deshaun is spoilering it.
Well, he's saying the audio sounds amazing. Which. Thanks, man. Nice
so the talk about this is basically about like how to do observability on Java and Spring and the observation API as well. And one of the like vital part of the talk, like the very end of it, is that since like the observation API is very, very flexible and you don't need to like define like what is the output that you want from it. For example, it can be metrics, it can be tracing, it can be logs, whatever you want. You can basically like put things into a audit database table based on these like recorded observations. So I was thinking about like what could be like a cool way to demo like the sheer power of this thing. Like what output can I produce, which would be like stunning or like shocking to the people. So do you know what MIDI is? MIDI?
Yeah, the sound emulation abstraction from the 90s.
Yeah, it is. Okay. It is it is an interface for musical instruments. Believe it or not, Java has support for that.
Oh, I do believe it. Yeah.
If I create a observation handler, which is basically like receiving events, hey, somebody started an observation and somebody stopped an observation, an error happened, whatever. So if I do that, and if I create a MIDI synthesizer in it, and if I
play music based on events,
let's say if I just like play a random percussive event for the time being of that like request processing, the time it took, and if this was an error, let's say I happen to play the French horn, then you can actually hear something like very, very interesting. You can hear the pace of these like drums, the music, which gives you like some sense of the throughput of your application. And every time when you can hear the French horn, you can actually hear some sense of like the error rate, because the French horn wheel like just blew in violently. And also what I can do like is I can introduce latency on this whole thing. So the whole thing has like a certain rhythm. And when I introduce latency, you can really, really hear the application. Like the music basically slows down, and it's awful. Like you can hear the JVM like struggling and having like a very, very, very bad time. I also call it like application torturing.
Right.
I am not very, very like happy about it, but yeah, it's a great way to demo the sheer power of the observation API.
Amazing! I can't wait to see this. That's amazing. Okay. I mean, I don't think most people. I mean, literally, like you could do like Queen or something. You know, if you get the right requests.
Actually,
you can have it played based on this error, that error, this exception, that exception gets you different instruments.
I did this talk as well, like last year, and one of our friends, Erin Schnabel, she was there
over at IBM.
So she had a complaint.
Oh no!
She said like she was totally expecting me to rickroll people. So what I did then, I created a handler which was not playing like notes randomly, but it was basically playing the next note from the like recachly never gonna give you up song.
Yes.
So I did that on Spring IO. I rickrolled, I don't know, 200 people on the stage.
So when Boot first came out we first talked about it in 2013, right? And so Phil Webb and I did a talk at Spring 1 in 2013, I think. And it was like this brand new Spring Boot thing, you know. We're trying to get people to understand it's not code generation, it's not, you know, we're trying to get people to understand this is a different way forward. Excuse me. And so we built this app, and you know, we were trying to also show this actuator module, instrumentation, observability built into the app, production worthiness out of the box. And so we built an app that used Raspberry Pi. And
oh, that was the coffee thing?
Yeah, exactly. We connected it to a coffee machine, and the joke was, and the demo was that oh, look, your app is down, the health indicator is down, so you're probably gonna be up all night, so we'll brew you a cup of coffee. So we actually had it so that when the service failed, health indicator went down, you know, health endpoint reflected down, and that in turn triggered there's a process running on the Raspberry Pi which in turn was using Pi4j to then control the circuits on a coffee machine, which then triggered the creation of a cup of coffee. The pouring of a cup of coffee, so we did that. And then that was a hard thing to move around, right? It's hard to carry a coffee machine in your luggage. So then we did another demo where maybe I'm doing it the other way around. Maybe the first one was the sound and the second was no, I think it's in this order. So we did another demo where it was plugged into a audio file. Basically, we play an audio file and say "Danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger," right? Like from Lost in Space. So yeah, that was using observability to trigger sound is perfect. We did that. Phil and I redid that talk.
Yes, I heard like a month ago.
Yeah.
San Francisco
Jug. We did that talk again, and we got out a new coffee machine using the new we walked through the code from 0 to we took the same app from 10 years ago.
Oh,
the same demo, same code, same everything, got it running, and then walked through what it looked like to introduce new features as we move from boot 1 to 1.2, 3, 4, 5, 2.0, 2.1, blah blah blah, all the way to 3.4. Today, I love that. I love that. That's so good. Observability is when I think of production worthiness, I think of Boot had this before we had Boot 1.0, we had actuator. That's the important part.
Yes. And actuator, in my opinion, is very, very, very vital part of the whole observability story, because it is basically providing data about your application, what is going on inside, and that's basically observability.
Yeah. And that support is getting better all the time. So I was hoping maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's new, what should people be looking at?
What is new and what is brewing? Well, let's start with actuator then. So I guess it was Spring Boot 3.3 or 4. I lost track.
That's so actuator, for those of you who just joined us or visiting from Mars or under a rock, actuator is a module in Spring Boot. It pulls in micrometer. So you don't need Spring Boot to use micrometer, but you do need micrometer to use Spring Boot if you want to use the observability stack. Okay, good. Sorry.
So there was a actuator endpoint which was added in one of the recent versions, and it is called the SBAM endpoint.
That's Moritz.
Yes, that's Moritz. Our friend Moritz Harbritter.
Yeah. Okay.
And what this endpoint does, it is basically showing you all of the dependencies and their versions as well.
3.3.
Yes. Oh, cool. Thank you. That your application is using.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, because now you can tell if you are out of compliance because of some old versions. You can also tell if you are using the wrong version of Log4j.
What's an SBAM?
So SBAM is a software bill of materials, and it is basically just a bill of materials for your dependencies. And it shows you what is inside and what dependencies you are using.
Nice.
Which is a really, really useful
provenance,
feature.
supply chain, inspections, that kind of stuff.
Yes, exactly.
You want to know what the mystery meat of your deployed artifact is, right? And what version, and you can see if there's a bug tied to that particular revision, transitive dependencies, all that kind of stuff.
And also, you might think that you know that your application is using X version of a library, but that might not be a reality.
Because of dependency management. And
exactly. Or just somebody switched something under the hood sometimes, and you did not notice it, or So, and you can ask this runtime in production, hey, what is the version of Log4j that you are using? Tell it to me.
So this is a two-sided thing, right? You have Maven Enforcer plugin for the build, and then on the other end, in case that doesn't work, you've got SBOMs to make sure it worked or whatever.
Yes.
Anyway, go on.
Yes.
Sorry.
Or you can also even if you can use this with or without the Enforcer plugin.
Yeah.
And the fact that basically it is built into Spring Boot, it makes it very, very convenient.
Would use what? Oh, the Cyclone DX plugin?
Yeah, the Cyclone DX plugin with the new SBAM actuator endpoint. You have native support for it in Spring Boot, which is really nice. And now you can actually also with the Maven Enforcer plugin, you can write some rules around this. But what you can do, for example, with this endpoint, you can scan your applications in production.
Yeah.
And tell that, hey, let's see who is using this version of Log4j or whatever library that you should not.
Right. So that's, I mean, so the CycloneDX plugin, CycloneDX is a project that generates a bill of materials. I guess there's a few different bill of materials formats, but we support this. We support the, as far as I know, one of the most common ones.
Yes.
And the Maven Enforcer plugin, independent of Spring, will what's the right word? Inspect.
Observe.
It will
scrutinize
each dependency and figure out the graph of dependencies, and it'll dump it out in that format for you.
Yes.
And put it in the class path, which then gets packaged in your jar. And what we did in Spring Boot is we now automatically surface the information in that file.
Yes.
In the actuator, same as we did for the Git commit ID plugin, right? So we also manage the version of the plugin for you. So all you have to do is enable the CycloneDX Maven plugin in your say plugin CycloneDX. Don't have to specify the version; it's managed for you by Spring Boot. Same thing for the Git commit ID plugin. When you do that, we manage the version for you. You just enable it by adding it to your own plugins, and it'll dump information about the current Git file and put that in actuator /info for you, assuming you enable it.
I really like that as well. Like the Git commit ID or like the Git commit plugin, it basically like lets you like gain insight about like what bits are deployed in production, because you will see like what is basically the Git commit ID when this thing was built.
Don't use it for Git blame. Use it for Git bisect. Okay, blameless postmortems. Anyway, yeah.
Yep.
Really good though. Really good. So let's see. Okay. This is like a what's the word? What's it called when somebody makes it easy for you to put the ball in the hoop?
I'm not sure. English is not my native.
No, but I don't know. I don't speak sports, but I know there's like a metaphor. Anyway, this is one of those where it's really slam dunk. That one. This one's easy. I can answer this one. I'm a great fan of Spring Framework. Thank you. We're grateful for you. In your opinion, which is the best ready-to-go server service for a Spring application similar to Vercel for next gen? Cloud Foundry. Just do that. Cloud Foundry and Deshaun, who's the ring leader of this channel of ours. He's got some great videos on that content, and Cloud Foundry. Just heck, I wrote a book, Cloud Native Java, back in 2017, which is Spring Boot and Cloud Foundry. That's easy. That's like it's not just the easiest way to get a Spring application up and running, though. It's also the easiest way to get .NET and PHP. Not that there's such a thing as a PHP application, but if there were, then that and Node and whatever else. Anyway, moving on. So the chat is helping. It's a slam dunk or an alley oop. I got two people saying slam dunk, and somebody else says alley oop, and I'm just gonna trust all of you. I don't know. I believe that. Anyway, so Git commit ID.
Yes, and also like this was also like recently added, and this is also like another like info contributor.
Right.
Sorry.
What is an info contributor?
Okay, let me get back, because like the SBOM, it is a new endpoint.
Right.
But the feature I want to talk about, that's an info contributor, because Spring Boot has an actuator endpoint called the info endpoint.
Right.
It's /actuator/info by default.
The Git commit ID plugin contributes to by default.
The Git commit ID goes there and a bunch of others. And if there is an interface called info contributor, which can basically like just provide some data, and whatever data it provides, it goes to the info endpoint.
Yes.
So it's very, very easy to populate the info endpoint, because you just like create beans from these info contributor implementations that you write, and basically that's it.
You can also, if you want, people can also do like info.env.
Yes, that as well. So you can do this like programmatically, but also you can do this in some like it is a little bit more like limited.
Right.
But yeah, you can add some details just by setting properties.
Yeah, you have to enable it, but then any arbitrary string you put, I think it's info.env.foo equals bar, and then it'll show foo equals bar in the endpoint.
Yes, it's like it's a hash map under the hood eventually, so you can put like any keys into it, and it will show up, and it is pretty nice. So
there's an abstract. So any component now can contribute an info contributor.
So that was always the case, that you can write your own. But like I guess it was like Spring 3.4 maybe.
Spring Boot or framework?
Oh, sorry, Spring Boot 3.4.
Yeah, okay.
But Deshaun can help me out probably. There was a process info contributor
Right.
and like added, and then there was some improvement on it, I guess, in the following version. So maybe 3.3 and 3.4. But what it does, it is basically like giving you process level information. Like what is the process ID, who is the owner of this process, what is the parent ID of this process. It also showed you like what are the number of CPUs that the JVM
super useful
can see.
So this gives you the process ID as well, the PID?
Yes, yes, it
so
is.
That's interesting. People may not realize we didn't always print out the PID. That was actually in the 1.0, like 1.1 or something for Spring Boot like 10 years ago. Somebody contributed it. That was an external contribution. And we added, it's like a PID writer. Basically, it got turned into that eventually, and it writes out the PID. It's a very simple thing. It's a listener, an initializer, I think.
And it goes to the logs.
Yeah, it goes to the logs.
Every single log line contains that, yes.
But that wasn't there in 1.0, and I was just thinking about it. Like, so now it's like a whole thing. We have it at runtime.
There is basically like a JSON like object in the info endpoint, and you can get this process level things. So the CPU. Actually, the CPU information is very, very interesting because like it shows you what are the number of CPUs that the JVM can see. And that's not always...
That's not the reality though, right?
Yes, that can be very, very interesting, for especially if you are running in containers because of control groups, like C groups, like for example, Docker under Kubernetes. For example, like I'm not sure if this is still the case, but those people who are using Kubernetes every day, they can tell probably. But it used to be the case when you did not set like the Kubernetes like CPU like request. Or maybe it was the limit. No, it was the CPU request. If you did not set it, then that was the time when Kubernetes still was using Docker. Kubernetes passed down the number of CPU shares, whatever number it did, to Docker. The JVM read that number, and it basically was at the end 2. I guess. And if you looked into it, what the JVM did, it basically divided this number by 124, and that was the number of CPUs. In this case, it was like rounded up to 1, which meant if you did not like set this number in Kubernetes, then the JVM thought it has only 1 available CPU. And what the JVM ergonomics do when it starts? It will basically like set a bunch of things up based on these values. For example, like the number of GC threads can be only 1. So which GC will be chosen? The serial GC. Bad. How many JIT threads, like JIT compiler threads will you have? Only 1. You have only 1 CPU core. All of your parallel streams, because like the common pool size will
the fork join executor.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no.
Those as well. Like parallel streams are not parallel anymore.
Which they did fix the JVM. Is it like Java 21? Recently they made it so it's container ready, right?
So there were a bunch of things like down the road to like add the container support and Docker support, but this was kind of like a Kubernetes thing, and this was, I guess, like in 2020 timeline. Around that, it was still existing. So at that point, the JVM was already like Docker aware. It knew that, hey, Docker is there, but Docker told it the thing that it wasn't basically like right. Because like
so much pain.
Yes, exactly. That's by the way, that's also the reason why this process info contributor now also contains like some memory details. Because that's another interesting thing. If you don't set like the memory limit in Kubernetes, and this was probably before the containerization support was added to the JVM, then if the JVM started, it just checked like, hey, what is the available memory for me? Oh, I am not container aware. Everything that the host has. And I guess that probably might still be the case if you don't set memory limit for the processor in C groups. Then all of the JVMs, like you have like 20 JVMs running on the same host,
right?
All of them will think that they can use the whole memory. They will step onto each other's toes. It will be like a recipe for a disaster. So Spring Boot, the actuator endpoint now can tell you these informations, and you will see that, hey, available processor count is 1. That's not good. So you can also write
you can
like
see if you're misconfigured.
Yeah, exactly. You can write tests against this, like smoke tests. Like you basically deploy the application, and after the deployment, when the box is like coming up, you can basically check like, hey, is this the same like amount that I am expecting to be? If not, you are not getting traffic.
Okay, so how do I get this feature?
You just need to like turn on. It's a property. It's
Okay.
I guess it's like info.process.
It'll autocomplete.
Enable. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna that's a good feature.
Yeah.
That alone is worth the price of admission for this podcast, which I'll remind you is free. So no complaints, no refunds. Actually, let me see, what do we got here? Deshaun saying what we're all thinking, which is I need to add process info contributor.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's and he says thanks for that. Which is
if you just start typing, then right now there are a bunch of things in the info endpoint that you can enable.
Podcast over. I wasn't typing. No. Okay, that's great. That's super good.
Another thing, which was also like an info contributor, and it was added, and this was like one of my like very, very, very like long time things I wanted to be in Spring Boot.
Yeah.
If you are using like HTTPS, then you are using probably some like TLS certificates, which we all know probably they expire every once in a while.
Imagine.
And I guess maybe companies, when they get the report that, hey, this expired certificate, which is like renewing it is like peanuts, costed millions of dollars,
right?
They might not have like a good time. So this is a really, really like common like issue in the industry, that like TLS certificates expired and you are not able to call like a web service anymore.
Right.
So in Spring Boot now there is an SSL info contributor and an SSL health indicator.
Is that based on the SSL bundle machinery?
Exactly. Yes. Scott
Frederick added a couple of releases ago.
That's the thing. So what it does, it is basically like asking like Spring Boot, the SSL bundle support in it, that hey, what are the SSL bundles? What are the certificates that you have? And you will get the server certificate that you are using to handle like requests coming to you. But you can also use like certificates in like your HTTP clients, RabbitMQ, Kafka, whatever. For example, I don't know, doing MTLS or something, because those can expire too.
Yeah, of course.
So all of these will be collected in a bundle, and a bunch of information will be provided to you, like who is the issuer of that certificate, what is the subject of it, what algorithm was used for that, and also validity dates.
Right.
Which is very interesting, because now the info endpoint can tell you if like a certificate is valid or not based on its dates. But it's also interesting that now it also like contains a part, but it doesn't just report that, hey, this certificate is valid because it hasn't been expired, or it is expired. It can also tell you within like a defined threshold if it will expire soon or not.
Yes. Oh, that's what. So I can trigger an alarm or a warning.
Yeah, there is a health check endpoint for, or like a health check for this as well in the health endpoint. So it can tell you that, hey, right now everything is fine, but if you don't do something in the next, I don't know, 1 week, 72 hours or something, then you will have a bad day.
Oh, that's so good. Like that kind of thing is like super, super useful. Yes. I did a demo with HashiCorp a year and a half ago, something like that, where basically we used Vault. So Vault can automatically rotate your keys for you.
Yes.
But the problem is, just because it has regenerated the key on a timeline every day or every 2 weeks or whatever, just because it has done that doesn't mean your app, which is running, sees the change. And so there's a couple of options here. First of all, you can, before the Scott Frederick's amazing contribution adding the SSL bundle support, you could use a reload endpoint, right? You could actually trigger a refresh event and then reconfigure your state based on that. And this could have, like, you can use HashiCorp Vault to also recycle, to change your, like, there's a plugin for Vault.
Yes, that's a Spring Cloud.
Separate.
It's also the Vault. Okay.
So like, so you have Vault. There's a plugin for Vault for Postgres or for MySQL or for whatever, and they can automatically change the Postgres password for you.
Oh, nice.
Well, but now you have to configure. You have to update your Spring application.
Yes.
To realize, oh, hey, the data source to which I was just connected has a new username and password. I'm not going to be able to connect. So you can have Vault automatically call via curl this endpoint, and then you can use that and it'll reconnect to Vault, pull down the new password for the data source and recreate it, right?
Nice.
But what about the SSL stuff? Yep. Well, for Scott, he added this ability in the SSL bundle stuff to dynamically reconfigure the SSL bundles when there's a new file, right? On the file system. It sets up a file system
Actually,
watcher.
it is even better than that, because I believe it was him who added like base 64 support for those properties. So you basically had like the binary file, you base64 encoded it, you got a string, and you were able to like shove it into a property.
Yes, exactly.
I was so happy on that day when this got merged, because I did that manually in the past. Like I needed to create this like environment. Like, I'm not sure even what was the name of the interface, but you needed to like jump some hoops, and so now it's like so easy. It's so awesome. I really like it.
It's Deshaun seconding that exact point. Base64 support, one of the most underrated features from 3.3.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And oh, hi, welcome. So yeah, just a really great feature. All that whole, so it's now it's possible to have a service that's running for as long as you want it to run, where it's never kept in the dark. You can rotate keys and just have it automatically update the production code, and you can sleep soundly knowing your code is both secure and running.
Yes.
Security and productivity and production are not at odds here.
There is also like a very interesting and very, I would say, underrated and small feature in Boot, which is the spring.application.group property.
Right.
It is kind of like the spring.application.name, and it doesn't do too much. It's just let you set it and be that data available for other things. So the group is basically a like logical group of multiple applications. So you can say that, hey, yes, exactly. Like I have like, I don't know, like 2 applications which are like, or like 3, 5, 10 applications which are like doing my payment processing. Let's group them together and let's call them payments.
Yeah.
I have, I don't know, like my checkout services. Let's call them, I don't know, checkout or whatever, or ordering. And you can use these things. For example, you can like tunnel this information into your observability data. Because now you can tag every single metric that you generate or span with this group.
So you have group : name as well,
exactly.
Right?
So I can go to Grafana, for example, and hey, show me all of the, I don't know, show me the HTTP latency for all of my services that I own.
In my system.
In my group. Like show me where the group equals this. Which is really nice and might not be like very apparent, like how powerful this very small feature is.
It's super powerful, and you're right. I didn't think about that. Normally, what I do is I have a namespace in Kubernetes or something like that, or like I'll have an organization in Cloud Foundry, right?
Yes, exactly.
But you don't have to technically do that. So it's nice to have the ability to, even in a shared global namespace inside of my container orchestrator, to have Spring application group set.
Or you can just basically like do that if you want, I don't know, some siloing in Kubernetes.
Sure.
And you can inject this
and make that Spring application group.
Exactly. And Spring now knows it.
But I mean, it's nice that you can get that this belongs to these things. You can do that even if your apps aren't deployed in a well-designed, isolated way. That's awesome. That is super good. Okay, that's not a new feature in how long has that been there? At least a year. Right?
I guess this is like 3.3. Oh, probably. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Though, Deshaun, do you know by heart?
I remember seeing that. That can't be just 3.3. That's
I don't
3.4 is out for 3 months now. So
we will be releasing 3.5
in a few months.
Yes,
oh my goodness.
Exactly. It is coming very fast. It shocks me every single time.
Too fast.
Yes.
3.5, and then I mean 3.5 is actually, that's the big one ahead of us, but the big one is 4, and that's November.
Yes, that's November.
Hi, buddy. How are you? Welcome to the show. Yeah. Yeah. So that 3.5. Anything we should know about 3.5? From the perspective of observability.
From observability perspective, that was kind of like, and I believe maybe it's still a little bit ongoing, but I believe it is like dying down. We were like thinking a lot in Micrometer to basically like increase the Java baseline.
Yes.
And releasing Micrometer 2. Because yes, Micrometer is still like 1.something.
Yeah.
1.15 will be in May. And it is still like the baseline is Java 8. So if you are using like Java 8, Micrometer still like covers you.
Wow.
And there is a huge, like, it's a really like hard, because the problem is that Micrometer is so low and it is so widespread, everyone is using it. So if we increase the Java baseline, everyone needs to. There are though like good signs in the industry, because as far as I know, like Jackson wants to increase the baseline.
Right.
SLF4J wants to increase the baseline.
It's time, people. Get off of Java 8. There's no reason for that anymore. I mean, even your ability to capture some of those metrics is, like, some of that stuff isn't available in Java 8, right? Like the JMX interface is different in some cases, right?
Oh yes, and that's a headache we need to basically like handle in Micrometer. So with the different Java versions, not just the version, also like the vendors, like there are things which are needed to like fetched, like some data that needed to fetch differently if you are using a like OpenJDK like hotspot,
right,
or like a OpenJ9 like the Semeru, the IBM bit. Yes, it's a very, very, very deep rabbit hole, and it is a special kind of hell to be.
So I saw somebody talking about, so SemVer is obviously pretty common, right? But I saw somebody talking about versioning with shame, like, so the big number is whether you're proud of it or not, and then the middle one is like, I forget, it's like the further down the line, the less proud of it you are. Like,
yes,
the less likely you'll want to tell people about it.
I like that.
Anyway, go on.
And also like another like challenging thing in that context or around that problem space is also like when there is like a new Java version, and we also like instrumenting Java in the JVM, and it contains like a new feature like virtual threads, but we are still on Java 8. Like, what do you do?
Oh, that's a great point. How do you capture something?
Yeah.
By the way, what is that? You know, even virtual threads, which are new in Java 21, even they're changing. Is that what? Is there any impact on, like, Java 21 has virtual threads, but Java 24 improves a lot of things about virtual threads.
Yes.
Does that have any effect in what you're doing?
Oh, yes. So first, like, because of like the JVM or the Java 8 baseline, when we want to support a feature which is not available there, then we need to basically create a new module and say that, hey, this is like Java 21 baseline, because virtual threads are only available in Java 21. So the tricky thing with like the virtual threads, or like the evolving support of virtual threads, is basically like supporting virtual threads in Micrometer. Other than this version headache, it's not very, very hard, because at the end it is only like listening to like JFR events.
Right.
And you are basically just getting those events and processing them, and that's it. Now the interesting thing is, how do you test this? Because like the two things that we are providing with virtual threads is, one, when a thread is pinned, which means that in the tests we need to somehow pin the thread.
So pinning, for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to take a brief second here. Java 21 introduced virtual threads. It looks at your thread. It looks at the code that you're executing, and if you're running inside of a virtual thread, if you do what is called blocking I/O, like input stream.read or output stream.write, it'll automatically it'll move the logic into a wait state while it waits for the bytes to get moved back and forth, and it'll put your code back on another thread once that blocking operation has happened. It only happens in virtual threads, and the reality is that even though you're running on one virtual thread, behind the scenes, if you look at the actual operating system carrier thread, it might be 1, and then when you're done with the blocking operation, it might be 7, right? It might be a different thread. That's a pinning. It's a blocking operation, and so the mutex there, when you do virtual threads, is, it lives with the carrier thread, not the virtual thread, and that's a bug, because that means that if you synchronize on a virtual thread, since the synchronization happens at the carrier thread level, not the virtual thread level, there's two threads. There's virtual threads. There can be 0 to n virtual threads running inside of one carrier thread, right? And or any one given carrier thread can have multiple virtual threads, because the semaphore, the lock, actually exists at, it's exclusive to the carrier thread. As soon as you do synchronized, the virtual thread support might accidentally, if they did it without this extra band-aid, they might have let you have a reentrant access to the same thread, even though you have synchronized, right? And so that's not going to work. So they effectively disallow synchronization. So if you do synchronization inside of a virtual thread, it just doesn't work. It just pins you to that thread.
It pins.
It stays to that thread.
Right now is actually a good thing only for our tests.
Right.
Because that's how we right now like pin virtual threads. And this is how we test this thing. Like, hey, give me the number of threads that are like pinned. Yeah, but I have 0. How can I like pin threads?
Oh, you have to force it.
So we can force this right now with
sleep
with just
IO.
like with synchronization.
Okay.
And we just like have a synchronized block and start the thread. And if that happens, we get the event from JFR that hey, you have like a pinned virtual thread, and we can test micrometer like this. Once they fix it, we need to figure out like how to.
Class.4 name, right? Like you can do. Any of the low-level reflection stuff uses native
because
code.
it's native. Yes. That's true too. So
that's still broken. Well, it's fine. It's not going to affect most people. Just don't do class.4 name inside of a virtual thread, and you'll be fine. But you should do.
Yes, I must. Another interesting thing is that like next to the number of pin threads, we also have a metric for when the JVM is not able to start a virtual thread.
Why
like it fails starting it, or
because it ran out of memory or something? Or?
Oh no. So there and there is also like starting and unparking it is basically the interesting thing that you need to test,
right?
Because otherwise, like, okay, I implemented this in micrometer, but when the JVM will like fail to start a virtual thread, and then there are cases for that. If you are interested in this, I'm not going to open this rabbit hole, but if you are interested in this rabbit hole, how I wrote the test are basically checked how the JDK, like Java test itself. And I basically like went down and checked, okay, like what you are doing in order to like mess this up so badly that the JVM will not be able to, or Java will not be.
Oh, it sounds like it sounds like at that point the JVM should just give you the same exact screen that Apple gave me, the FU screen.
Exactly.
The DFU screen.
Maybe it's in the like somewhere there is an exception, and maybe it is in there.
I'm sure, man.
Or maybe in the JFR event. I never checked that.
You're right. I never even thought about it. What if Apple actually is printing an exception, but it's in black ink on the black screen, and you're just not seeing it? It's our fault, surely, holding it wrong. No, that's great. So the JFR, like, oh man, you have to go.
Yes.
What a dance we do to make sure you get this information in a nice, clean little resting point. You know.
Oh, this was actually like the implementation with the JFR. This was a community contribution.
Oh wow, I love our community.
Somebody added it, and then like we just like looked at the PR, which was like, of course, because it was like very hard to test. It wasn't like complete from this perspective, and I was like, oh, okay, what should we do now to test this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was actually you have to figure out how to break it so you can assert the truth, assert the good situation. Yes. Well, that's amazing. So that's already there. That's coming, or
it is already there. Like virtual threads, like you can use it like as of today. It's already merged, and
and it should, when 3.5 comes out, Java 24 will be supported, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it like from micrometer perspective, it doesn't matter.
But your test will change.
Oh yes, we need to figure that out exactly.
That'll be fun. And then what about 4? What about Spring Boot 4? Do we have anything I should be looking forward to there? That's public that you can tell us without having to kill me.
That's the problem. I'm not 100%.
Okay, we'll come back.
Sure.
We'll come back.
What are the things I can tell, and what are the things I cannot?
Well, this is actually better for me because then we can have another podcast. Don't give away everything. Always leave them coming back. That's what I always say. Except I don't say that. What else? He's got this. You can't see this, people, but he's got this ridiculous list. Like
you
could do a 10-hour workshop on this stuff. There's just all this cool stuff that is new and novel and worth learning about. And this isn't even his talk tomorrow. It's absurd. Anyway, go on.
There is also like a very interesting thing now in Micrometer that was actually like reported by Brian Cosell.
Okay, Spring Framework contributor.
Yes. He needed a way to see when he is creating instrumentation with the observation API, and he is making some mess. For example, with the observation API, what you can do is like you start an observation and you stop an observation.
But you forget to stop it?
For example, well, like forget to stop it, that's hard to detect, but maybe you will detect it because that can include a memory leak in like depending on how your setup is or what you are doing in the...
If you're using the Lambda form, though, it automatically stops, right? Like,
yes, in the Lambda form, it is automatically stops. But for example, if you want to stop an observation without starting it, or if you want to start twice, or if you want to stop twice, or if you want to, I don't know, signal an error after the observation already stopped. Like, we have a test observation registry, which is 4 tests.
So you're going to create observability for the observability?
Something like that. Validation, but yes, we are watching what you are doing with the observation API, and we are letting you know if there is something wrong. So what the thing basically does, it's like an observation registry for tests.
Yeah.
And if you use it, and if you are creating like observations using this component, then yeah, it is that easy. It is basically like recording what you are doing. And when you do that, it will basically just yell at you. And the interesting thing in it, it will also give you like the one line of the stack trace, like with the line number when this is happening. So if you stop an observation twice, it will tell you that, hey, you stopped the observation here once and here once. And because it is like using the same form of the stack trace, because we are basically cutting out from the stack trace, that's one line.
Right.
IDEs like IntelliJ, they will make it a link. You can just click on it, which is pretty nice.
This reminds me of a Latin phrase, which I won't pretend to be able to pronounce, but there it is. It's quis custodiet ipsos custodes, which is who guards the guards.
Yes.
Like, who watches the watchers. Anyway, that's
like that. And actually, like, the situation is like that because Brian requested this because he was writing instrumentation in Spring Framework probably, and he needed a way to like see if something goes wrong.
That's amazing. So it also makes my head hurt. It could be the low sugar. Deshaun in for the win, of course, as always. Wasn't there something new in the Prometheus RSocket proxy recently?
RSocket proxy was so let's start with what RSocket proxy is.
Yes.
Or the Prometheus.
Well, let's start with RSocket first.
Let's start with RSocket.
Amazing protocol put forth by Netflix and Facebook 7 years ago. Binary is reactive on the wire, basically.
Exactly.
It's the reactive spec on the wire. So you've got send, forget, fire and forget. You've got streaming bidirectional. You've got request response. You've got all the streaming.
Yes. We have an amazing guy, Oleg Dokuka from Ukraine, working on it.
Amazing, yeah. And so that's a binary protocol, like gRPC or something.
Yes.
But it allows you to write reactive network code, basically.
Yes. With, I guess that is.
And we have
support how many protocols, but RSocket does have back pressure, right?
Yeah. Yes. And it works. You can run RSocket, interestingly, on like WebSockets. You can run it on HTTP2, I think. You can run it on its own protocol dynamically, directly. It's an amazing protocol. We have support in Spring RSocket, so you can actually add controllers and do destination mapping, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
So we did the thing with like RSocket proxy, like Prometheus RSocket proxy. It is trying to solve basically 2 problems if you are using Prometheus, because Prometheus is like a metrics backend. And unlike other backends, it's pool-based. So if you are using a random metrics backend but Prometheus, then usually what your application is doing, it is sending data to that backend. Prometheus is not like that. Prometheus is basically scraping your application with a certain frequency and saying that, hey, give me the data.
This is good. This is actually a very mature idea because it makes sure that Prometheus can't get overwhelmed, right? It has back pressure.
It is, yes. It is like one advantage of it is that, but there are some disadvantages. For example, if your application cannot open an ingress because of regulations or like compliance rules. Yeah. So if it is not able to like make the data available to Prometheus because it cannot open like a port for incoming things.
RSocket can do this as well. It can do bidirectional.
Exactly.
Ingress free communication.
That's where Prometheus RSocket proxy comes to the picture, because the Prometheus RSocket proxy is basically like two components. There is a server, like a proxy component.
Let me, just so people understand, with RSocket, you can have a RSocket service that is completely firewalled in. Nobody is allowed to make any requests whatsoever inbound. But the RSocket service can open up a connection outbound to another RSocket service, and then keep the connection open, and they can communicate back and forth.
Exactly.
And so in this way, it's completely secure, right? You don't even need, I mean, you need security at some point, and Spring Security works with RSocket, but like, in terms of like your ability to randomly just find and work with the service, it won't happen. It only connects to the thing you let it. So and it's a stateful connection. It stays alive for as long as you need it to, right?
That's exactly what RSocket proxy is doing.
Right.
It has like a server component. That's the proxy. That's what Prometheus will scrape. And that's what will store the data for you. And you can like put it into an environment where it is like compliant to be there and be scraped. But your application, it contains the client.
Yeah.
It's an RSocket client. And the client connects to the server. It's not an ingress.
Right.
It's an outgoing. It's an egress connection. Right. And when that connection is ready, it's persistent. From that, it doesn't matter who is the server, who is the client. There is no server and there is no client. Yes, it's bidirection. So that's how basically this works.
Hi, welcome. That's so cool.
This is one of the like problems that RSocket proxy can resolve, the ingress problem. The other problem with this is because of this frequency that Prometheus is calling you, I don't know, let's say every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
If your application starts and stops within that time window, then Prometheus will not even know about it. That's a problem.
Oh, that is a problem, because it might see the new service.
It might never see it. Like the service, just like, let's say it's a data processing bot or whatever.
Right.
It just wakes up, it processes the data and shuts down. Oh. And Prometheus
it's missed all the metrics from it.
Where is this? Like, even if like the registry, like so Prometheus needs a like list of applications,
right,
like who to scrape. And if you're using Kubernetes has some API for that. You can like integrate like Prometheus with like a flat file. Like you can basically just write this into a configuration,
right?
Or you can use Eureka or whatever. So when your application starts and stops within that time window, maybe it gets registered into the service registry, but Prometheus is like trying to scrape, like, hey,
and the state's living in the VM, which gets shut down.
Who is this new guy? And tries to scrape it, but it is not there anymore. It's like gone like long time ago.
Right.
Prometheus will not get the data.
Oh dear.
So because of this, like the client in Prometheus RSocket proxy, when you shut down the application, there is a shutdown hook. And with its like last breath, it will send all of the data that it has to the Prometheus,
to buffer it.
Yes, to the proxy. And the proxy will keep it. It is long-lived. It is not meant to be shut down. So next time when Prometheus like scrapes the proxy, it will have the data.
Now, but what if you need to have another RSocket Prometheus proxy to offload the current RSocket Prometheus proxies data when you shut down the first one? Well, who scrapes the scraper?
Exactly. Yeah. It's all the way turtles.
Awesome. That's so cool. That's a great use of RSocket, and it works really well with Prometheus. I love RSocket. That's which reminds me of another thing. What's the story with the, separate, of course, but what's the story with the gRPC stuff, the Spring gRPC experimental project?
Oh, yes. Dave Sire. Dr. Sire is working on it. And I guess there was like a new milestone. It's like, it's basically like get like, I'm not sure what happened, but there was some news last week about it.
Yes. Okay. I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember. I remember that Dave saying like in the chat about it. But yeah, like right now we have like a new project which is like Spring integration for gRPC.
Right. Yeah. So with that project, it's like 6 months, a year, or whatever. But and it's on start.spring.io, by the way. But what's interesting is it's got observability and security, right? So the security stuff was, well, to be fair, if you're using just regular HTTP, you can run gRPC over HTTP, then nothing really has to change. You can just use that like you would any other HTTP service. But he's also working on some stuff around like gRPC binary protocol, without HTTP. But anyway, that's not. I was just saying. Is there anything you can talk about the observability there?
No, I don't think I have reviewed anything like related to gRPC, but like this is kind of like a pattern since like Spring Boot 3.
Yeah.
That whenever we basically like create a new Spring module, then we also add like observability support for that. Maybe it will be not in the first milestone.
We have it has actuator, it has health endpoint support, it has health check on the client as well. We have observability.
Oh yes.
So provides auto-configured interceptor that can be used to provide observability to your gRPC services. Add the Spring actuator to your project and optionally bridge to your observability platform of choice, just like any other micrometer integration. And the gRPC Tomcat example.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's how good micrometer is. Sometimes people are using it, you don't even know. It's just so
exactly.
Good.
By the way, this same thing happened with Spring AI as well.
Oh yeah,
like in like one milestone, it was like, hey, now Spring AI has like full observability support.
I loved, and that was actually quite a bit of that because of it actually forced a refactoring of the project, right? They had to change.
There was like a huge community contribution, from Thomas Vitale.
Yeah, that's I remember that. There was a couple milestones ago. That was every model basically became there's now a base class that has the observability hooks. Really nice.
And an amazing thing is like being observability built in these projects. It is basically you don't need to chase your own like tail, or like somebody don't need to chase like Spring AI's tail with observability and instrumentation, because hey, there was some modification in Spring AI. Now I need to basically like modify my my instrumentation, and they are versioned like differently, and it is a headache now. Like this version of my observability solution or like tool library supports this version of Spring. Yeah, it's not good. If observability is built in, you are in a much better situation.
I love it. Huge fan. This is again, it's friction-free observability. Just add Spring Boot Starter Actuator to your build, set up some properties, set up your you're gonna have more. I've seen your tortured Prometheus / Zipkin / whatever setup. That's a lot of config and files.
Yes.
You have to set up your stack.
Yes.
But the point is, from the Spring perspective, integrating with all that is as easy as it could be.
Yes, it's pretty easy. It is basically just like setting the endpoint where to send the data. Or if it is on localhost and it is like using the default port, you don't need to do that.
What is the? I mean, I use Prometheus, but Graphite was a big thing 15 years ago.
StatsD as well.
StatsD, that's the protocol. So what's the most common thing you see these days? Do we know, or is it?
We do, like at least.
Can you tell us without having to murder us?
I think so. I like at least for Micrometer or like Spring Boot users, it is Prometheus.
Yeah.
Prometheus has like the huge like user base. Yes, it is kind of the de facto like metric solution, mostly because it is like a very nice what is the right word for it? Dimensional backend, which means that like
not key value.
Yes, not key value, not hierarchical. So all of these like different like values, for example, HTTP status code 200, 404, 500, and so on. All of these things are not encoded into the name in some way, but it is basically like a metadata key value, a dimension.
You can pivot on it.
Exactly.
So for example, this is if anybody here used Spring Boot 1, we used Drop Wizard Metrics, which was hierarchical. And if you wanted to store information about, like you said, status code, you could have like server.request.500.get equals 5, and server.request.500 equals 6, because maybe you had one post and 5 gets. And if you want to do you want to find out the post, you do server.500. whatever, and it just gets very confusing. Multiple.
Yes, and people like wrote like regular expressions, or it can be like very ugly.
But now you can just have server.request and add a tag.
Yes, exactly.
Like it's a request, a verb equals get, and status code equals blah and blah, and I can pivot. I can search.
It's super easy with that compared to your. As far as I know, by the way, this was one of the drivers why Micrometer was born. Like
Oh, no doubt. Okay.
Like matrix libraries, that time, most of them were basically like hierarchical.
Yeah.
And Micrometer was like one of the first like dimensional matrix
It
libraries.
is really good. Well, but also Atlas is dimensional, right?
That's why I said not the first one, but
No,
one of the first
one of the first ones, yeah.
As far as I know, though, like John Schneider said that Micrometer is basically the copy of it, like the client for Atlas.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, Micrometer
because
really
like that
good.
was also like a
Netflix
Netflix thing.
project.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So it's okay. Prometheus. So it's good that people are standardizing on a good thing here. Like Prometheus is a good place to standardize, not Java 8, people. Okay. I don't know why you got that wrong, but Prometheus right. Just no. It's 2025. It's the world's hard enough. Don't use Java. I feel like I'm gonna be 70.
Yes.
Just
also it could help us a lot as well if people would stop using Java 8, because then means that we can move off of Java 8 for Micrometer, which is like very, very painful. I struggle like every single day because of that. So please don't.
Yeah. Just do it. Okay. Well, that's good. Anything else we should know?
I have two more things.
Okay.
About like what is brewing, what is coming in Boot 3.5 in May, mid-May, I guess, or like end of May. So remember I mentioned these like SSL like support. It will tell you information like info endpoint and health endpoint, like your basically your certificates and whether they will like expire or not, or will expire. Moritz, again. This is kind of like a recurring pattern, I guess. We are talking about features that he implemented. So thank you, Moritz.
Yeah, he was just on the show. I just had him on the show.
Yep.
I don't know, was it last week or something? Maybe it was yesterday.
He's really cool. I really like him.
Yeah, me too.
So
we have a great team.
He implemented metrics support for this. So now you can basically have like a numerical value about this many certificates are about to expire.
Yeah.
And so on, which is like a really cool thing. You can actually like put it onto the dashboard and you can see that, oops, we need to do something. Or you can basically like alert on that if you want to.
Right.
And so this whole thing will be baked into your metrics backend. And as your observability solution, you don't necessarily need to like scrape the info endpoint.
Right.
Because if a lot of people, they have like some sort of like a metrics backend and they publishing data there, and now this can go there too.
So good.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really good. So that's coming out next month, March, like, 20 days from now, basically, roughly. That's 3.5. I'm not sure. Is that right? Is it 15 March or roughly?
Wait. Like you mean the
Spring Boot 3.5?
The milestone? Because the GA is May. Yes.
Right.
It's kind of like 20-something of May.
You know how you can figure this out? Calendar.spring.io.
Yes, calendar.spring.io. That's the easiest.
Let me go there right now.
But if you want something like very confusing, it is the Thursday, like the second Thursday from the second Monday of the month, I think. I'm not 100% sure.
Wait, maybe I got that wrong. Let me see. Hold on. I'm looking at the old calendar here. March, there's something big. No, in fact, there's nothing on the 15th, which is the Ides of March. There is Spring Boot 3.44 on the 20th.
It is in May 2022.
M3 comes out on the 20th for 3.5, M3.
Yes, but that's March.
Right.
Yeah, the GA is May 22.
Okay. That'll be good. Look forward to it. Get the bits now. Java 24 is in March. That's what I'm
yes,
thinking of.
Exactly.
Thank you, Deshaun.
Yes.
And that one fixes a very big issue. I mean, it fixes the pinning, which is the biggest issue.
Yes.
Well, for most cases, it fixes the pinning.
Hopefully.
When you're doing synchronized. It doesn't fix it for native code, but unless you're doing
baby steps.
Yeah.
Well, baby steps in this case not necessarily small,
right.
but
it fixes
a big problem.
It's a big problem. It's a big for the fix that they've delivered in Java 24. I think means that most people won't have any troubles now adopting virtual threads,
except me, who needs to test this.
Right? Yeah. Pity the poor engineer, the framework engineer. But so there's that, and then the other thing it fixes is that there's this weird confluence of issues that does not affect me right now. because I'm using my Apple M3. I had to downgrade to Apple 3. But if you're using an Apple M4, camera, there. If you're using Apple M4 build packs, GraalVM all together, it doesn't work. But if you're using Java 24 or Java 17, just nothing in between. If you're using those,
it's
it
very
does work.
specific.
Very specific, and it's guess who it applied to? Me. But I'm going to upgrade to Java 24 and never talk about it again. I won't have to worry about it. That bug is gone. It's in the rear view mirror.
Nice.
Thank you, Java.
Nice.
What else? Anything
So
else?
the last thing, which is like so new that it is like was brewing even today.
Yeah.
We had conversations about this with Brian Kazal, who is implementing this. From the next version of framework, we are like the next milestone of framework. We are going to add trace IDs or tracing informations into the HTTP response headers.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So when you, for example, like hit like a service and you get back, I don't know, an error.
Yeah.
The header, it should contain tracing information. So for example, you can show the trace ID on the UI. So when you have a user who basically just like sends the error message to you or like screenshots the error message, then you will have a trace ID.
Right.
You can go to your distributed tracing system
and look up that
basically, yes,
request.
exactly. You looked it up.
That'll be a lot easier. I mean, of course, your code doesn't have errors. I'm sure. I'm sure you don't need this. But for my code, this is going to be huge.
It doesn't even need to be like an error. You can just like say like, hey, I had this, I don't know, like weird behavior, or like maybe this was success, but it should not be, or it was success and it should be a success. And could you please look it up, like what happened? Here is the trace ID. And it's like very, very like easy if that trace happened to be sampled. And
which of course it should be.
In that case, you can go to the distributed
tracing. The sample. Remember to set your sampler to. Oh, actually, don't do that. Is it still 10%? What 0.1?
It is 10% by default, yes. But like it depends. Like it totally depends on your traffic. Netflix, they have much less sampling than 10%.
And I'm sure,
yes, 10% data for them, it's still like enormous, huge.
I remember
you don't
Twitter as well, right?
Like, Twitter as well, yes. On that scale, you cannot even do 10%.
Yeah, because you need a system that's able to handle all of traffic.
Exactly.
Of production.
If you are like just writing or creating a web service or a web application that is only used by a handful of internal users, you can go with 100% sampling because like that's not a lot of data. So yeah, it's a trade-off.
And Prometheus can scale out though, right? It's really good at being horizontally scaled.
Like Prometheus for tracing.
Yeah, I mean for.
No, you mean Zipkin, right?
Well, Zipkin, yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Can Zipkin handle?
It is still like you still need like Zipkin can be backed by like, for example, Elasticsearch, which can scale like really well. But the problem is still like you are basically like pushing
through a funnel.
Yes, a lot of things through the network, and it will be like persistently stored somewhere. So yeah, so data retention and like network bandwidth, all of these are issues if you are on that scale. If you're not, just be happy with your 100% sampling and and just enjoy that you can look up whatever error.
It's a luxury,
yes,
but maybe it's for you. I don't know. Amazing. I can't wait for these releases. Try it out, and also 3.5 coming in May. 3.4 is out right now. 3.4. Whatever 3 I think or 4. But either way, get the bits now. Deprecations, people. Pay attention to the deprecations. Remember, if it's deprecated now, good chance it'll be gone by 4.0, right, in November. So you should be upgrading. But if there's any deprecations and you don't want to face those, right? Just face them now while they're just underlines, and not compiler errors later. Thank you. This has been fun. Thanks, everybody. Are you online? Do you want to be found? And if so, where can people find you?
Yes, they can find me by my name, like at the various like social like media, the Bird app, the Butterfly app, like Blue Sky, the Cat app, which is like GitHub or Octocat.
Oh, I was gonna say what?
Yeah. You can find me on GitHub as well, and also I have a blog or a website which collects all of these. It's developers.com. like developers, but like authors. And I guess I list there like my social handles.
Okay, I'm gonna chuck that in this in here. Live. There, go there, people. Go there, learn things. Just enrich yourself. It'll be great. I do the same. It's good stuff. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a good day,
Goodbye.
evening, afternoon, morning, whatever.